you want us to start? We were just
Do you want us to start, or are you going to do something else?
Can you give me my water?
Now we're...
It's on my pee bag, like by my pee bag.
I'm trying to do sign language.
Yeah.
Nobody understands it, and I'm picking my hands up. Sorry to myself.
All right, welcome back. Did you guys have fun this morning? Yeah. Did you get cold or did you stay warm? Cold? All right. Are you guys cold now? Do you need to stand up and jump around?
Our songs aren't jumping songs.
Okay. All right, look around you. Are all okay? So if your club is here, is the whole club here?
No.
So we're okay. Ish. Does someone have a phone or a time? It's 2:04. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What? Okay, so we'll give a few more minutes. What I'm going to do is we're going to start down at that end, and we're going to tell our name and where we are from, what club we're from.
Hi, I'm Richard from the Sandpoint Northern Lights.
I'm Zach from the Sandpoint Northern Lights.
I'm Bradley from the Sandpoint Pathfinders.
I'm Sam. I'm from Ponderosa.
Which is here in Hayden.
Hi. I'm Amber, and I'm on the East Cascades coordinator.
Apple Valley, it's okay.
Apple Valley, woohoo!
And I'm Lana, and I am from Ponderosa Pathfinders also, but I wear another hat. I am also a coordinator.
I'm Noelle. I'm from Brewster and also temporarily blind.
I'm David. I am on the coordinator team and attached with White Elipu.
Hi, I'm Michelle Hager, and I'm from Brewster Blazers.
If you didn't hear that, Michelle Hager from Brewster Blazers on the lovely piano. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and start singing. Our first song is He Already Sees. Should we wait for the words to be up? Yeah. Dun-dun. Sorry. Okay. Thank you, James. Okay, they're up.
When the storm raged about them, the disciples were afraid, for the waves were high and the ship was tossed, and they could not find their way. And they awoke the Master, saying, Lord, please save us now. He rebuked the winds and the sea grew calm, and they all wondered how. God sees the storm from the other side. He knows the lessons learned, and just beyond the clouds he sees clear skies. He speaks peace to the raging storm when peace could not be found. He already sees the rainbow when we see only clouds. Like the man on the sea did, I have called on God in prayer. When it seemed to me all hope was gone, and in my deep despair, I remembered what the Lord said when he calmed that troubled sea. And I know once more how he sees the storm, and peace floods over me. God sees the storm from the other side. He knows the lessons learned, and just beyond the clouds he sees clear skies. He speaks peace to the raging storm when peace could not be found. He already sees the rainbow when we see only clouds. God sees the storm from the other side. He knows the lessons learned, and just beyond the clouds he sees clear skies. He speaks peace to the raging storm when peace could not be found. He already sees the rainbow. We see only clouds.
Our next one is Draw Me Close to You.
Draw me close
To you. Never let me go. Lay it all down again.
our next song is Good, Good Father. I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whisper of love in the dead of night, and you tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. Good, good Father, it's who you are, it's who you are, it's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am. And I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers. Only you provide, 'cause you know just what we need before we say a word. Good, good Father, it's who you are, it's who you are, it's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Love so undeniable, I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable, I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love. Love, love, you're good, good Father. It's who you are, it's who you are, it's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am. And our last song is going to be Confidence, our theme song. So can I have you guys all stand up, please?
face my giants with confidence. Give me faith like Daniel in the lion's den. Give me a hope like Moses in the wilderness. Give me a heart like David, Lord, be my defense, so I can face my giants with confidence. So I can face my giants with confidence. Thank you, guys. You may be seated.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to buy some time because Este's not ready yet. So Este is coming up here to make a special announcement. I don't have any other announcements. We need her first. Do charades. All right, did you guys have fun this morning? And did you guys notice the sun is out? I know, it's so exciting. So this afternoon, we're going to do some activities, and hopefully you guys go out and get outside in the sunshine. Did you guys notice the theme here? We like you outside, not inside. We like you outside. So for this afternoon, remember, you might need your coats again. Estee, are you ready? Do you guys remember how I talked to you about your staff? And I know that we really tire your staff out over the weekend, and just remember to uplift their spirits so that they have a good attitude and a positive attitude. The staff. Okay, here's Este.
Thank you, Amy. I was trying to get pictures for you guys, so I'm up here to talk a little bit about what Teen Extreme is. If you've been, I'm working on it, Amy. So if you've been on a Teen Extreme event, just stand up right where you are. So there's a few of you. All right, you can sit down. So, Luke, you're closest here. What Teen Extreme event did you go on?
I went caving.
And what was it like?
Dark.
I should have guessed. This picture is from mountain biking a few years ago. I can't tell for sure. So mountain biking is one of the events we do. Caving is another one. Rock climbing is another one. And if you come on one of these events, who's another person who's been on one that wants to answer a question? So why don't you come up here so I don't have to disappear. So Megan, when you went on, I think you came on mountain biking and rock climbing. You've been on all of them. Cool. So when you came, you sat around a lot, right, and did nothing?
Maybe on the bus.
Okay.
That was about it.
Were you bored?
No.
Were you tired?
Yes. Very.
And did you learn anything?
I learned a lot, actually. I learned how to properly mountain bike. I learned how to properly cave so that nobody gets hurt. And I also learned how to properly rock climb without hurting myself. So, important to have fun and be safe at the same time.
This is a picture from one of our rock climbing locations. Did you learn anything about God?
God is definitely the God of object lessons in nature. So we, as part of these events, we pull a lot of object lessons. And so there are definitely things that I learned about him during those times that I will never forget. Sorry. Yeah.
So, so we had church at the church and sat a lot for a church, right?
Anything but that. Church happens on location. So we do kind of like what we did today, where you go around to different stations, and each station has a different lesson that you learn, or a different aspect of maybe the activity that you're doing that weekend, where they take something like belaying. So you learn how to belay someone when they're rock climbing, and we also tie in the spiritual aspect where God is your rope, and you need to make sure that you are belayed on and that you are communicating with the person that you are allowing to climb up the rock face, that you are in control of making sure that they don't fall. And so that's a lot of church. That's what church is on those events.
Right. So we do church without sitting around and doing nothing for a couple hours.
That's right.
Yeah. So if you come on one of these events, come prepared to be active and to learn a lot. Yep, that's one of our mountain biking locations once. And also, come prepared to have fun and learn about God and yourself.
Are you going to do sailing?
We're wanting to do sailing. We're having some trouble getting it figured out. It's a little complicated.
I believe in you.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan. Can everybody say thank you to her? So our next event is on the calendar is rock climbing. And then at the end of September, we're going to do caving again because we missed it during COVID, and we did mountain biking twice. So we're going to do caving twice, so we're back on the schedule. And we're kind of toying with the idea of doing combined caving and mountain biking. So whoever wants to do mountain biking does mountain biking, while those who want to do caving at the same location. Yeah, let's not. For those of you who went caving, how likely is it to mountain bike through the cave? We're not going to, where is that, Kentucky? Anyway, so we haven't gotten this precise location figured out for rock climbing yet, but it is going to happen. It's on the conference calendar. So look there, it's at the end of April, I think. And for all of you teens, be sure and let your staff know that you want to attend so that they can be watching for the registration and get you signed up. Also, ask your staff for the gear list. We always put together a detailed list of what you need to bring, and what clothes to wear is part of that, and that can be really important. And there have been a few times, here again, you need to keep your staff in line. There have been a few times where kids show up without what they need, and we're like, well, didn't you read the gear list? And they say, I never saw it. So you need to take some responsibility for being prepared yourself and ask your staff for the gear list. Maybe they didn't see it. So, Amy? Does anybody have a question about Teen Extreme?
Okay, one thing I want to say about Teen Extreme. So Noe, I don't know if any of you even remember Noe, who's my oldest son. But Oliver, my youngest, is like, I remember him. Anyway, so Noe first started going, I think he was 12.
He had to be 13.
Oh, he had to be, well, that.
We are very strict about that.
He was just little.
Yeah, he was little.
So Noe would come home from every single Teen Extreme event and just, dead on his feet. He would be so tired. He'd be so exhausted. And actually, one time, Ned and Rosa took all the kids out to dinner, and Noe missed dinner because he fell asleep in his chair. And he came back exhausted, and then for the next month, he would talk about Teen Extreme and how fun it was. So these are really, really fun times, and just be prepared to have a lot of fun and to learn a lot about God.
And be tired.
And be tired at the end.
Does anybody have a question before I leave? So we don't know the exact location yet for rock climbing. We're working on it. We're kind of hoping to go to 9 Mile Falls area because it's a gorgeous spot and it's really easy to get to the rocks. So easier than Peshastin Pinnacles. Edwin.
Where is 9 Mile Falls?
Outside of Spokane. Doug.
So if I was a teen and I had never rock climbed and I might be a little bit nervous about hanging off a rope on a rock, what can you tell me that would make me really excited about going?
So we assume, so his question for those who didn't hear him was, what if I've never been rock climbing before and I'm a little scared? Why would I want to come? So we assume that everyone who comes is a beginner and has never done the activity. So we start from scratch. So for our Sabbath morning stations, we're doing a combination of the spiritual lesson plus teaching you the basics of what you need to do in order to rock climb safely. We also have a lot of trained staff. There have been some events where we're almost one-to-one staff to kids. And we are doing a lot of teaching all day on Sabbath, and then you get to practice some things without going very high, and then you get to do fun high things too, like rappelling on Sabbath, and then Sunday is when you do the actual climbing from the bottom up. And we do our best to choose a location that has enough variety of difficulty so that you can do a really super easy one that you almost don't really need a rope for because it's so easy up to it's a challenge for somebody who's been climbing a lot. So we try to have a variety. Any other questions? And then I'll turn it over to the next person.
Can't wait.
All right.
Thank you, Este.
Okay, so we're the Pendleton Pathfinders, and we're going to be praying for you guys today. So attention. Prayed rest. Prayer attention. Dear God, so many teenagers are searching. Please, God, please somehow help them to know that you can fill the empty place in their lives.
And pray for this person's sister who is sick, and for her to get well soon, and for the doctors to figure out what is going on.
So the prayer is, I remember when a person used to sing our theme song, Confidence, and this person has now chosen another path. God, please give us wisdom and courage to know how to reach out to this person.
Pray for our family. Dad had a brain cancer and a kidney cancer, and daughter has a potential serious health condition. And please, God, help us all to have a good weekend. And Please help us to learn a lot from what they're going to say today. And in your name we pray, amen. Attention, at ease, seats. I don't know.
Keep talking, keep talking.
Nothing works. Does your microphone need to move closer to your mouth?
Hello?
It's very quiet.
This one works. All right. See, I want to hold the mic. All right, let's get started. All right, guys. Glad to see everybody here. I just want to give a shout out to a very special group number 5. Yeah, group number 5, the dream team.
We're doing shout outs.
No, these are my people. These are my people.
What number were you?
3.
Ooh.
I heard that your group brought you like apple cider.
No, my group was the best. My group was the best, I think. Yeah. Yeah, so.
Hot chocolate outside?
Yeah.
Group 1 was the best.
Group 1 was the best.
Yeah, sorry. Group 5. All right. We're gonna get started here. How many of you guys have ever read a Choose Your Own Adventure book? Okay, all right. How many of you guys have never read a Choose Your Own Adventure book? All right, I'm in that crowd too. Apparently, there's a book where you can choose your own adventure, right? I had no idea. This was explained to me, so I'm gonna try to explain to you guys something I've never read, okay? So.
You got it?
I got it. Apparently there's this book that starts off, right? And like the title says, you get to choose your own adventure, right? So you start off and then, you arrive at a point where you have to make a choice, similar to the choices like you guys made this morning, right? And so depending on what choice you make, it'll take you to another section of the book. Apparently you can get lost in a forest, right?
Depends on what book
Depends
you read.
on what book, but
Depends on what the story is.
Depends on what the story is. You can go in circles or you can end up dying, apparently. I don't know. I guess the book is pretty wild. But the important thing being that your choice affects kind of where you end up being. The choices that you make in the book will dictate what the ending is or how long it takes you to get there or what happens along the way. Recently, I got a Nintendo Switch. Do you guys have a Switch? Yes! How many of you guys have an OLED Switch? Oh, wow. Okay, just me. All right, that's cool. So I just got an OLED Switch, okay? And Breath of the Wild. How many of you guys have played Breath of the Wild? Yes! Yes. PJ, you need to get a Switch, all right? So I started playing Breath of the Wild, and for those of you guys that play Breath of the Wild, you pick up things along the way. Am I right? And at the beginning, you're picking up all these things that really are not useful, right? Like you're picking up, I don't know, sticks, you're picking up stones, I don't know. You're picking up all kinds of things, but you don't really need them until you make your way like more into the game, and then you start using these elements to help you on later in the game. And so the choices that we make at the beginning of the game dictate how well it's going to go as we progress into the game Breath of the Wild. So, we're going to be talking about personal spirituality and how important the choices are that we make when we start, how important those choices are as we progress along the way in our spiritual journey.
And part of that is that spirituality and having a spiritual walk with God doesn't happen accidentally. But kind of like what Saul was saying, it's taking those tools that you pick up at the beginning and using them along the way, and refining as you go with the choices that you're making. It's about the journey, not the destination, and it's about progress and on the way. And it's a journey. Sometimes the journey is really, really great, and sometimes it really, really sucks. To be honest with you guys, being a pastor is something that I never planned to be. For those older staff that remember me when I was little, that was never something that was on my mind. And I grew up in the church, and I grew up in the Adventist faith, or in the Adventist church in the Christian faith, and it wasn't until I was 18 that I really, really, really felt like I had something called a testimony. And a testimony is just your walk with God. It's the story of how God has worked in your life. And it wasn't until I was 18 that I felt that. I was planning on going to Walla Walla University to get my bachelor's in speech communication, and I found out in May that they had dropped my degree for the upcoming year. And I was devastated. I had gotten in a year early. When I was junior in high school, I had gotten accepted to Walla Walla for this degree, and I had been looking forward for it for so long. And so when I was told that they didn't have my degree anymore, they told me that I have 4 choices. They said, you can choose another degree, you can go to a different Adventist school, look to see if they have it, you can apply to the board of directors and see if they'll let you come in, or you can, and they said, we don't recommend this, but you can go somewhere else. And so I had this point in my life where I was like, the plan that I've made for myself is falling apart completely, absolutely just falling apart. And I'm a planner. Saul and PJ will tell you this. Like, I'm a planner. I like to have a plan. And so I get to this point and I get to this choice, and I looked at the other degrees and I'm like, ooh, none of these are right. I looked at different Adventist schools that might have it, and no one else had it. I wrote a letter to the board of directors and asked them, can I come in? I've already been accepted, like I'm coming in with a bunch of credits. I'll be technically a junior in credit at this point in time. Can I come in? And I got a letter back from them saying, we don't think you can do it. The answer is no. And at that point in time, I was devastated. What do you do? What do you do when you have this expectation, when you have this moment, when you have this moment with God and you're like, what are you doing with my life, God? What are you doing? I ended up deciding to go to a different college that had my degree, and I graduated a couple years later with my degree. And because I graduated in just a couple years, I decided that I was going to go ahead and take a year and go do some missionary work, right? And so I was working at Camp Maivaden that summer, actually, and I found out that I had been accepted to be the pastor, the youth pastor in Belfast, Northern Ireland. And I was leaving in January. And so I packed up everything, and for the first time in my life, I moved away from home to a different country, to a place where I didn't know a single person, to work at a job in which I've never worked at before. And it was one of the hardest years of my entire life. But through that time, that simple choice I had made to go give a year of my life to God, I sat on the floor of my apartment in Belfast, and I remember having this overwhelming feeling of God saying, Larissa, you're going to be a pastor. You're going to be a pastor in the States. I was like, haha, you're funny. Like, that's a funny joke. And I was like, and I kept feeling it. Like, no, Larissa, you're going to be a pastor. And I was like, okay, I'll make you a deal, God. I'll make you a deal. You open the door and they call me, and I will walk through it. I've been pastoring for 6 years now, and every single time I have been called and asked to pastor at a different place. I have never looked for it. I have never put myself out there and been like, oh yeah, like looking for a new job. But I told God, God, I will walk on this journey with you. I don't know what the destination is. But if you open the doors, I'll walk through them. And now I'm a pastor. And it's crazy. And so there are these moments that we have, these choices that we make, and they lead us to places that we would have never imagined being at.
Sometimes in the journey, things are hard. Some of those experiences, I'm sure there was hours, days, weeks where you felt like this is hard.
Oh, absolutely.
There's another group of people that had some hard experiences. The Israelites were in slavery for a long time, and then God sends Moses, and through his power, he delivers them from Egypt. It's amazing. And then they find themselves sitting in the desert, and they don't have any water.
Water's good.
Water's essential. How many days can you last without water? 3. Okay, so 2 in the desert. This is not it's not a small thing. It's significant. It is life-threatening. And they feel like they are left out there alone. Was God around? Yeah, God was present. They didn't understand what was going on. And in fact, I think he probably needed them to recognize that they needed him. And so he leaves them in the desert in this urgent situation where they are running out, some million people running out of water. If you look at Isaiah 43:19, there's this promise. It says that God will make rivers in the desert. And I know in our spiritual life, not just in the journey of our life, but in our spiritual life, sometimes we get to these points where you read the Bible and it's just like, I don't know, goes in one ear, out the other kind of thing. It just doesn't connect. Just like, what's the point of that? Okay, so I read a bunch of names, big deal. And you just feel like this spirituality thing is not really connecting with you. Or you pray, and you don't feel like God's responding or interacting with you, and your prayers aren't being answered, and you're just like, what's the point? And you look around, and there's fun stuff to do, and your faith, your belief says that's not so good to do. Don't do that fun thing. And you just feel like, man, this is dry. This is desert. And is God even around?
One of my favorite stories in the Bible is the story of Ruth. And there's a moment where Ruth has lost a lot. Her husband has died. Her brother-in-law has passed away as well, and her father-in-law. And so these men in her life, these people that she loves, they're all gone. They're dead. And Naomi's, her mother-in-law is like, you know what? I can't do anything for you. It would be better for you to go back to your family's house because I really can't do anything for you. And Ruth says something in this moment that I think is really powerful, that when we're feeling dry, when we're feeling like we don't understand what's going on, that really gives me hope. It's that engaging in community. And she says, where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. And it's that moment of recognizing, you know what? I'm in a very dry place right now. Like, life is confusing and it's hard and I don't understand. But I'm going to spend it with people who are connected. I'm going to spend it with people who do have that living water, who do have that access, because maybe I can get a piece of it. Maybe I can understand this a little bit more.
And those Israelites, they were immature. They didn't really know God. They didn't know what to expect here. And so they started complaining. That's not the right way to go. But they started complaining, and they expressed their need to their spiritual leader, Moses. And they said, Moses, and of course they said the wrong thing, Moses, we'd rather be back in Egypt and die in slavery than be here in the desert. We need water. Okay, so it was a bad way of approaching the subject, but they did express their need. And God says to Moses, go out and hit that rock with your staff. And this river comes out of a rock. I mean, to water 1 million people and all the animals, it's not a trickle. It is plentiful. But they needed to feel their need, and they needed to go talk to the people that actually were connected with God to get their help.
And they needed to take the time to actually step out into that. One of my favorite things that people tell me is like, I just didn't have time to do this. And it's not that people don't have time. It's that it's not a priority. We have time. I mean, when you look at this weekend, you made time to be here because it was a priority for you. And now you're here. Your staff are here because they made it a priority. And so sometimes we say, oh, like our time with God, like I just don't have time. I'm so busy. But this idea of a priority, of making a choice, of making this first, is something that we do have the power to do.
I think when we talk about making time, I think that when we think about our friendships, like the people we like to hang out with, maybe the things that we like to do, activities with our friends and family, those things are great to do, and we make time and space in our lives to be able to do that. But more importantly than what you do, it's who you're doing it with. You guys can be doing maybe the most boring thing in the world, but if you're with the people that you love, that you appreciate, that you like, I mean, it could be the most fun thing in the world. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like, were you guys cold earlier today? A little bit, right? But did you have fun?
Absolutely.
No.
I did.
Well, group 5 had fun. All right, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but it was cold. It was. I would never choose to spend 2 hours outside. You know what I mean? But seeing you guys and that hot chocolate in my hand and the people rubbing my feet, you know, that made it all worth it. I'm just playing. I'm playing. But again, it's not necessarily the thing that we're doing, but that we're cultivating friendships and relationships together. And that's what Jesus wants when he wants to connect with us.
Saul, are the things important?
The things,
activities. Are the activities important? Activities
are important in that you're doing them, but it's not like a checklist. Like if you think of your friend, you're not like, I got to, to cultivate my friendship, there's a checklist I need to do. Like, did I call? Did I do this? No, you just do it because you enjoy spending that time with that person. And as you cultivate other friendships, there are friends that you will text every day, and then there are other people that slowly, little by little, will kind of fade out of our lives. You know
that song. Do you guys ever remember that song? Sing that song where it's read your Bible, pray every day, and what's the result? And you'll grow. Yeah. So there's like this formula that we have. Right? Read your Bible, pray, go to church, be a part of Pathfinders.
And you'll grow.
And you'll grow.
And you'll grow.
But relationships are like, he's talking about spending time, the act of friendship into your relationship. And doing things with friends is important. If you don't do things with friends, will you stay friends? No. It's time together that draws you together in love and friendship. And so time together doing things, doing activities are good. And if you want to go and hang out at a club and your friend is totally not into that kind of a world, are they going to stay your friend? No, you do things that your friends enjoy. So those activities like reading your Bible and praying and going to church and being a part of Pathfinders are important. Those are things that Jesus is already a part of. And so doing things that he likes to do is important. But it's not a checklist. It's not a formula. It's a relationship.
I think more than that, it's not about a space, like a time in the day. And we may be treading on a little bit thin ice here, but one of the things that
What's the law? The Pathfinder law?
yep, that's where I'm going.
Pathfinder law is to keep
the morning watch.
I struggle in the morning.
You know, I truly believe that there are people that God doesn't even want to see in the morning, and I think I am one of them. Honestly, I am not a morning person. Like, I do not. No, Pastor Saul, I can tell you, like, I am not a morning person. I do not enjoy the morning.
It's like 1 a.m. last night. I'm trying to sleep, and Larissa over here is texting me YouTube videos. You know, I'm trying to sleep, Larissa. You know.
I'm a night owl, like straight up, and that's when I spend my time with God. That's when I read my Bible. That's when I reflect on my day. That's when I talk to God about people that I've encountered, and Lord, how do I be in relationship with them and friendship, and how do I cultivate this? And that's the time which I spend, and so it's not about a specific time of day. When we talk about your your spiritual journey, your walk with God, it's not about a time of day. It's about a space and time that you intentionally make in order to spend time with God. It's about inviting Jesus into life and saying, hey, God, so I'm about to do this thing and I'm really nervous, like speaking in a panel in front of a bunch of teenagers, and I really could use you next to me and with me because I don't know what I'm doing. And it's inviting Jesus into life and saying, hey, like, I need you. I want you. Will you come along with me?
I'm sure that some of you heard that and were like, I don't have to worry about spending time with God in the morning. I'm good now.
I mean, as long as you create that space.
Yeah, it's
I have a church that meets every day at 5 a.m. for prayer. And I pray for them at 10. And I'm like, you know what? Praying at 5 doesn't make you more spiritual than praying at 10. Yeah. I say, hey, give me a call at 2 a.m. I'll be up for prayer, But 5 a.m, I'm just not, So I
thought you were asleep by 1.
I was, right? But again, it's about that space and time, because you can't neglect it. You can't be like, oh yeah, I don't have to pray in the morning, so I'm not going to pray at all. I'm not going to spend time with Jesus at all. But you make space. You make it a priority to say, what space in my life can I intentionally give? But Paul also mentions about praying without ceasing. So this kind of journeying with God, being in that constant connection with God along the journey, and also making that space,
My best friend and I have not lived in the same city for a very long time at this point. And I don't think there has been a week since we became best friends, when we were 15, that I haven't talked to her. And the reason why we're best friends is because we have all these shared memories together. And sometimes we can't do stuff in the same space. Sometimes it's a phone call. When we were in college and we were both super busy, we did this thing called 5-minute phone calls, where we would call each other and be like, hey, I have 5 minutes. I just want to say hi. This is something that happened today, and I love you, bye. And it's taking that time to say, you know what, I care about you, and I'm excited to talk about you. And I know that sometimes we can't be in person, but I still want to spend time with you. And maybe it's in a different way than what you would have expected.
One of the ways, as we were talking about what does spirituality look, we've kind of talked about the time aspect of it, but as we were each one of us looking at what does spirituality look for each one of us, how can you tell I have a great connection with God, what does that look like? For me personally, I really resonate with the book of James. I don't know how many of you guys have read the book of James, but that book is my favorite book because James asks a lot of pointed questions, and he really puts you on the spot, and it's like, hey, you have faith? let me see, like, what does that look like? And I know growing up, a lot of the times it was like, I think I have faith. Like, I think I have a relationship with God, but I'm not quite sure if that's just in my mind or is that something that's a reality. And when I think about the book of James, I mean, James has a perfect example. In James chapter 2, he says, suppose somebody comes to your church and he is in need. And you tell him, oh, God be with you, I'll pray for you. James asked the question, he's like, what good is that if you don't provide something of need to the person who's in need? And for me, that really resonated because it's taking me from a place of I'm spending time with God to how does that look like now in my relationship with other people? How is spending time with God changing me to be a more loving person so that I can be like, wow, look at what God's doing in my life. Look how I'm seeing people through the lenses of God, and I'm able to see the need and I want to do something about it. And that for me, that's what my faith takes me to. Being a blessing and loving on other people even more deeply than I would have had I not been spending time with God.
Have you guys ever met those people that you don't really know them at all, but you know that they know Jesus? Have you guys ever seen that? I've met people in the store, and we don't talk long. It's not a huge conversation, but I know that they know Jesus based on how they act, based on the joy that they have for life, based on just all these different things. It's like, I know you know God, and that's cool. It's kind of what Saul's saying, it comes out in different ways and it comes out in those actions.
It reminds me of the parable Jesus talked about, the sheep and the goats. And this one group of people come to him and he's like, yeah, depart from me, you workers of iniquity, right? And they're like, but didn't we like preach and read the Bible a lot and pray really well and we even worked miracles? And Jesus is like, yeah, no, I never knew you. And then these other people come up and he's like, hey, enter into the joy of my Lord. And they're like, but why? And he's like, because when I was hungry, you fed me. Because when I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. You put clothes on me when I was naked. You cared about me. You loved. And I think when you read the story of the gospel, the spirituality in the Bible, it's about a loving relationship that we don't manufacture. It's a relationship that like starts with God's love. And we respond because we see his love so much. And if you spend any time with Jesus, you start to realize, man, God so loved the world. He so loved me. And it starts to change your heart.
And there are lots of different ways in order to even read the Bible, in order to spend time with God in his word and what that looks like. One of the questions that came up on the survey that we got, and we actually read them. I want you guys to know. We read through them.
Till midnight last night.
Yeah.
There was one we didn't read, though. There was one.
Because we couldn't read it.
I don't know.
But there was one last night that talked about, it said, like, why is the Bible important and how does it relate to us? And I think when we've talked a lot about it throughout this session so far, but one of my favorite things to do is to write letters. I love writing letters. In fact, I probably have like $200 plus of stationery in my house currently. I love stationery. I love letter writing. I buy so many stamps every year because I send out a lot of letters. And I have campers who are now adults. Like I was their counselor. Thank you. The word was coming. I was their counselor at one point, and they still have letters that I wrote to them when they were campers. And they kept them because it means something. So you know what? There's some days where I'm having a really bad day, and I go back and I grab that letter that you wrote me, and it just reminds me to keep going. And when I think about the Bible, when I think about what it is, to me, it's like a letter from God saying, you know what? Life is hard. Life sucks. But guess what? I love you. I'm going to give you encouragement, and I'm going to give you something that you can refer back to when you have those days, when you have things you don't understand, when you have places in life and situations where you're like, what in the world is going on? And the Bible is this love letter that has been written to us. And there's lots of different ways to read it. We have it. I mean, it's pretty readily available. And so how do we do it? What does that look like?
There's this advice in the Bible that you've probably heard before, and goes something like this: here a little, there a little, line upon line, precept upon precept, right? So now you know. That's how you read the Bible. What does that mean? Well, back in the day, the books are written in like a scroll format, and you have to stretch them out on a table, and you're going back and forth, here a little, there a little, right? You're exploring it. And I think that's really important because you've got stuff in the Bible that references stuff that happened a long time before. And so if you don't know the story before, then it's hard for you to understand what's going on here. Understanding the history, the experience of the people at the time is part of reading their story. And it's as we get to know their story that we're like, wow, that's how God related to them. And now it's like gives us reference for how God relates to you and me. And so those are valuable tools, exploring the Bible. But it's not like there's an exact formula. Well, you just read through the Bible in a year, or you memorize a chapter, or it's not like there's an exact formula for studying the Bible. We each kind of do it a little differently.
So Jason, how do you do it?
Well, I want to tell you a story. I was 15. Finished my sophomore year in high school. I was going to an academy in Oklahoma, a boarding academy, and so I'm living on campus for 2 years with these people. I made friends, like the first real friends I'd made in my life. They were really, really nice. I didn't know how to make friends, so they made friends with me, and I was like really attached to them. So I go home, and we like agreed that we would exchange letters, and teenagers are really good at keeping their promises, right? So I wrote them letters. I mean, I said I would, and so I did, and I wrote them letters, and I didn't get a single response, like zip, from anybody. I was like gone. And I felt really, really lonely. Well, that year I decided that I was going to read the Bible through. And so I did. I just, from one end to the other, I started charging through it. But it wasn't in the time that I was reading it that it really connected with my heart and my life. There's these times when I was feeling lonely, and I'd go out and I'd be like in nature somewhere. I'd be wandering through the woods, crying to myself that my friends weren't my friends anymore. And I had this notebook kind of thing that I would draw in, or sometimes make notes, and I just like flop down on the grass or whatever. And it was in that moment where I was vulnerable and saying, I have a need, God, that things that I'd read started to connect with my heart. And I think that's one of the things that really makes a difference in my life today. I can just read through the Bible and not really be changed. But when I stop and I connect my real life struggle with what I'm hearing in the Bible, that's when things start to transform.
What about you, Saul?
So I have tried every which way. I really thought reading the Bible through a year would work for me, and it didn't. So I applaud the Pendleton Church for working their way through it. Guys, you guys are MVPs. But it didn't work. It didn't work for me. I tried Bible journals. You guys ever done a Bible journal before? Yeah. Turns out I don't like paper, I don't like paper. I'm all digital, guys. I'm all digital. So I bought pens, and I bought a fancy, Bible journal. It's still there if anybody wants it, I have not written. But for me, it turned out, I liked reading a lot. Like, I think I liked reading before more than I like reading now. But what I found myself is, I loved learning information. Like, I just loved it. And it tended to sway more towards, I like learning information for the sake of knowing more than somebody else. And it was just like, oh man, like what do you call it? It's not called, it's called the Bible experience, right? No?
He just wants to say, I disagree.
But Pathfinder Bible experience, like I loved it, because you know what it's like to go into your church and like, like a lot. I felt good, but I really didn't, that really didn't affect, the way I lived my life. And as I got older, I started, I don't know, there was this moment where you realize, right? I realized the disconnect that was happening between the information I knew and the way I was making choices and living my life. And I said, I think I need to read this just a little bit slower. And so now what I do is I actually just spend time just reading a book, just one book. And sometimes I'll chew on a verse for a week, a paragraph. Yep. I'll memorize that verse and I'll just repeat it every day. And I'll be like, all right, done, and yeah, it's a constant, whatever it takes for me to make that connection, that's what I do.
For me, I'm going to be totally honest and vulnerable with you guys. I am currently at the longest streak of reading my Bible that I've ever been at. Today is day 30.
Nice.
Being completely honest with you, I have read my Bible for 30 days in a row, and that is the longest I have ever been able to do it. And for me, I have a really hard time being accountable to myself when it comes to reading the Bible. There are other things that I can be accountable to myself about really, really well. But when it comes to reading those love letters, to spending that time with God, I'm really terrible at it. I make a lot of space for God in other ways, but when it comes to reading the Bible, I don't know. It's harder. And so what I found works for me is I have found a group of people who are reading the same thing as me, and I've actually have an accountability partner who reads it with me. And so there's a group of us who are doing the Bible in a year.
Great. I'm glad it's working.
We're trying. We're a month in. And so we're doing this together, and she'll text me in the morning, or she'll text me at night, or she texts me anytime, actually. And she'll be like, hey, I just finished my Bible reading. How's it going for you today? She doesn't say, are you done? Have you finished it? She asks, how's it going? And for me, that's such a difference. It's not like a checklist like we've talked about, but it's hey, how's it going? Let's make a plan for this. Let's stick it on the journey. Let's make it a part of your day. How's it going? And there are times in which I get it done before her, and I'll text her and be like, hey, I just spent my time with God. What's your plan for today? And so I have this accountability partner who we were able to talk. I was the first one to message her today, and I was like, hey, I read our chapters. What's it going to be like for you today? What's it look like? And so for reading the Bible, for me, it's looked very differently over the years. Like Saul, I've tried quite a bit, but one of the things that I love doing is I love reading and then just asking all the questions I can think of, and then I follow the rabbit hole. And I love the rabbit hole. I have found some amazing stuff following the rabbit hole, just trying to figure out okay, wait, that reminds me of something over here. Okay, what is that? I'm going to go follow it over here. Okay, it's referencing this thing way back here. Now I'm going to follow that. And so for me, that's how I love reading the Bible, is just following that rabbit hole, following those questions, being willing to ask questions and say, okay, I don't understand this. Where do I go?
The Bible is simple enough for a child to understand, complicated enough that people with multiple doctorate degrees are still exploring it. So it's like time. Spend time in the Bible. But we do not have a righteousness by Bible reading faith.
Yeah, so righteousness by faith, you may have heard this said before, but basically, to put it in a nutshell, what this is sometimes there are people in our lives who can, when they talk about faith and they talk about your spiritual walk, make it sound like it is a checklist and it's all the things that you need to do in order to get into heaven. And in Genesis chapter 3, this is the story about the fall when Adam and Eve have sinned. And they have sinned and they realize they're naked, and they do something really interesting. It says, the Bible tells us that they sewed clothes of fig leaves. And so they have these clothes of fig leaves, and God comes walking through the garden, and they hide from him. And this conversation follows that God has with Adam, he has with Eve, and he has with the devil, with the serpent. And at the end of it, something really interesting is said. It says that God makes for them clothing of skin. Now, were Adam and Eve already clothed at that point?
Well, they had leaves on.
Yeah, they had leaves on. They had clothing on at that point. So why would God need to make them clothing of skin? Maybe to show them how. Could have been. What we find is
their clothes sucked. That's why.
they were not the right fashion for that era.
A little breeze, and you know.
Exactly. It is the first death that we see in the Bible. The first death that we see is God taking an animal, sacrificing it to cover us. And
tell us about the Chinese character real quick.
okay,
Just really
the Chinese character. Okay, so in ancient Chinese, I have a thing, and maybe we can throw it up here later. But in ancient Chinese, they have this really cool word for righteousness. So for the word righteousness, it's in two parts, and the top part says lamb. It's the character for lamb, and on the bottom part of it, it's the word for me. But the word for me is made up of two other words, and those words are a knife in my hand. So the word for righteousness is the lamb over me who's holding a knife in my hand. The word righteousness can seem really confusing and like, what does that even mean? But what it basically is at the end of the day, is that the Lamb of God is covering us. God covered Adam and Eve with clothing, with the lamb, not because their clothing was ugly or it wasn't the right thing, but God was showing from the very beginning that it is not what we do that is going to get us into heaven. It's the relationship that we have with God. That if we allow the Lamb to cover us, if we allow God to cover us, that relationship is what it is.
And relationships are really not that complicated. Every one of you knows how to do them. I mean, and for Jesus, what it means is Jesus is saying, come spend time with me. Just come hang out with me. I love it when you talk with me. I love it when you read the Bible. That's my word. And I love it when you hang out with other people who love me, right? And then bring me along with you in your day. Bring me with you. Let it be a constant conversation. And there's like a lot of tools that we have for things like Bible reading. Like, have you heard of the Bible app, Bible Project app? Yeah, Bible Project has an awesome new app out. Kind of teaches you how to study the Bible. Really good stuff. And there's all kinds of other tools.
And before we get to the resources, I just want to end with this kind of thought. Good. And this has probably been the most impactful verses for me this year. In Matthew 7, Jesus says in verse 21, he says, "Not everyone who says, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven. Only those who actually do what I'm asking them to do." And then in verse 22, it says, "On the judgment day, many will say to me, 'Lord, Lord, we prophesied in your name. We casted out demons. We performed many miracles. We read the Bible in a year. We prayed every day at 5 a.m. We did so many things." Verse 23 says, "But I will say, I don't know you." Like, I don't know who you are. And Jesus says the only reason, the only difference between those that are going to be like in and those that don't, he's like, is the people that I know. And people are going to come up to Jesus. "Jesus, we did all these things. We read every day. You know, I read my Bible 31 days. You know, I prayed every day." And Jesus like, "I don't know who you are." Relationship with Jesus sits above absolutely everything.
Yeah, so time with God, time in the Bible. There's some good resources. I mentioned the Bible Project app. And there's
The YouVersion app. Also, you can do plans. You can search those plans. So the YouVersion Bible app also allows you to do that. You can do it by yourself. You can do it with friends.
and the Read Scriptures app. That one's good if you have a hard time reading, but you have you're an audible, you can listen pretty easily. That one will read it to you. So there's good things. Do we have that?
It never came through.
It never came through.
So
we'll try to get it to you later.
We're going to try, but we're going to try to get this printed. But we have some offline resources, ideas, and we also have one for you guys. It has each book of the Bible, and each chapter is a bubble. And once you guys read that chapter, you can mark it off. And it's just a fun way to keep track of like where you're at. You can skip around. You can draw different designs with the bubbles. That's what I would probably end up doing.
And again, the point isn't to check the box or fill in the bubble. The point is spending time with your friend, getting to know Jesus.
There's also some resources at the Adventist Book Center, especially from Pathfinders. Pastor Troy Fitzgerald is one of the pastors here in this conference, has some amazing books on this topic, on different things. And so highly recommend Pastor Troy's stuff, but there's a lot of different resources out there. And so we wanted to give you some ideas for what this looks like. A lot of what you guys asked was not only what we do, but how can you also do it?
There's a bunch of questions that people had. Probably, 5 different people said, I'd like to know more about like the doctrines of the church. Or one person said, I'd like to understand like why we believe different things differently than other churches, other than the Sabbath. Why is it that we believe some of these things? If you've got questions like that, there's some really great Bible studies that just kind of give you a big overview of the Bible. Talk to your pastor, talk to your Pathfinder leader and say, I want to go through a Bible study series, and they'll make sure that they connect you with one that's good.
Pastor Troy also has one.
Pastor Troy has some good resources. I like one called TruthLink. That's amazing, but lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
Let's get to the
questions.
Do we have time for questions?
So today's going to look a little bit different than it did last night. We're talking about biblical spirituality, and it's part of that is being able to, it's real. It's you doing it, it's us doing it, it's all these different things. And so we wanted to give you an opportunity to, if you have questions that you feel comfortable asking out loud, we're going to have a roving mic for a few minutes on this subject of biblical spirituality, on personal struggles, on what this looks like. So if you have a question for us, we are taking live questions right now. And then after that, we will go into the box and into that.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to add that spending time with God isn't always about reading or listening to your Bible. For me, a very spiritual time is listening to music.
Yeah, music is a big one.
Yep.
I write poetry. That's one of my ways.
Raise your hand if you have a question. We're going to read one up here.
Raise it high. Oh, here we go in the back.
Do you want to ask it to us? Actually, let's do it that way.
This isn't a question either, but it's about things that I like to do. I don't know if any of you know Don Schaefer, teacher at WAVA. Anyway, he heads up a morning hike on Sabbath mornings every week. We hike up the Blue Mountains, sometimes 2 miles, sometimes 10. And it's an awesome time to spend with God.
So here's a question from the box. What do I do when I'm feeling discouraged in my faith?
Make sure your mic is on. What do I do when I'm feeling discouraged in my faith?
Yes. Community. Like that, for me, that's the only answer. Now, you may have different opinions, but for me, it's community. It's engaging with people who, and talking about it with them. There have been times where I have straight up said, you know what? God and I aren't talking right now. In fact, God and I are arguing. And I'm so discouraged in what's going on around me. but I'm still going to put myself in community. And community
and not just
can be
any
found.
community.
Yeah, in a spiritual community, going church is a community. Pathfinders is a community. You're like a book study, that's a community. Like it's a spiritual community. Yeah, can I get community from other places? Yeah, but if I'm feeling discouraged in my spiritual walk, like where I'm at my faith, like putting myself in a space that is a spiritual community for me, like that is the answer. It doesn't mean that it's like a quick fix, but it helps me to also see people who are maybe going through some stuff that I'm going through and maybe have some wisdom on this topic that I haven't been given or I don't know. But for me, it's community. You guys?
I agree.
Woo!
Stamp of approval.
I think that for me, it's being engaged with something. Like I'll pick up something. Like not that I was discouraged, but I was kind of like in a rut, and I got into Legos. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna go buy a bunch of really expensive Legos, and and pretty soon I got like 4 or 5 different things, and that really helped to kind of not dwell on that discouragement. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna find joy through Legos. And then pretty soon I'm finding other people in my community who are also into Legos. And we're talking about, going in on some big cranes and, anyways, that's what I've been doing. No, but I got the big toys. He's all right.
There are some things. there are some times when we've got a question. Okay. So there are some questions, or not some questions, some times when our spiritual walk is it's depressed and it's our own fault, right? We've been neglecting hanging out with God, and we feel like I'm in a dry and thirsty place. Well, go drink from the water of life a bit, Spend some time with Jesus in prayer and music and Bible study. And other times it's because we're intentionally doing something that God has convicted us we shouldn't be doing. And when we're in that situation, the Bible invites us to do something really simple. It says, in 1 John 2:1 says, "My little children, I write to you so that you do not sin. But if," and the expectation is when, "you sin, you have an advocate in heaven, Jesus Christ, the righteous." And then in 1 John 1:9, just a couple verses before, it says, "If you sin, confess, and he will forgive and cleanse." And I think that is often a starting point for renewal in our spiritual life, is to recognize, all right, God, I am walking my own path. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to go back on the topic, but what kind of Legos?
So that's a great question.
One that maybe should be answered after.
Technic.
Yes.
He's got to answer it right now.
Now, here's another serious question. Now, going back on a topic that I might have sent in through the box a couple nights ago, how does God really, truly decide the fate of the world through us?
No.
The fate of the world. Can you expound a little bit on that?
I guess I could use a little bit of history to help.
Briefly, really
briefly,
brief.
to help me explain what I'm exactly trying to say. Like, I know it talks in the Bible, like previously, that in a dream of a man, like at the feet of like some great statue, it is clay and iron, but they are never to mold together again. And I'm sorry to go on this topic, but like World War II, everyone thought that Hitler was going to win because of some certain circumstances, but there was a lot of people that read the Bible and said, he is not going to win because it says in this prophecy that he is not going to win. And he's going to be beaten away.
So the fate of the world, I think the fate of the world is pretty clearly outlined in Revelation. The fate is that God is going to remake it, and he's going to put an end to evil. And so when we look in the Bible and we see prophecies are these frameworks that help us to see God's got the big picture in mind. You and I have choices that we can make in the middle of things, but the big stuff, taking down kings and setting them up, organizing nations and the big stuff in world history, God he's making sure it doesn't go into a place that it shouldn't. He's making sure that it ends the way he wants it to. And I think that's, as far as God deciding the fate of the world, we're not the ones that do that. But he does use us in his work as what Jesus talks about, growing his kingdom.
But I would also say that that we have a hand in this. I mean, when we look at what Jesus says it is done. Like it is fulfilled. It is done. And yet we're still here. So like what's going on with that? And the Bible tells us that we have a hand in that. Tell the whole world. Like bring everyone in on this, and to like it's not just, oh yeah, we're here, but it's also that we have a responsibility in God's plan. Like God has a plan for us and he wants us to be a part of it. It's not just him up here, doing stuff, but it's we have an active part in this plan.
Another question from the box. How do you build faith?
You want me to answer that one?
Oh, yeah.
You got
That's
it.
all you, Saul.
You got
I think so.
Saul's a builder, so he knows.
I'm a builder. Builder Bob over here. Guys, you put a mic in my hand. I don't know what I want to say sometimes. No, I think almost that's kind of part of the problem is that faith comes from God as well. And when we build it, when we decide to build it, we also can deconstruct it. And so I really believe that God is the one who places faith in us, and he sustains it. He does all the work. He finishes the good work that he started within us. And so when we realize that that's not dependent on us, but it's something that God gives us, I think it changes it. And that's when we say, I have really strong faith, or I have really low faith. And it usually coincides with how we're feeling, or how well we did things, or how well we really came through. And then faith kind of turns into like a roller coaster, and it's just kind of up and down. But when we see our faith as dependent and built upon God, God is constant, God is steady. And I think that's reliable in our own lives.
I used to do this colporteur ministry. Anybody done youth rush or colporteur, anything? Yeah. Okay, so you're going to doors, you're selling Christian books, it's good stuff. Anyway, so in a day, you might spend 6-7 hours talking to people at their doors and selling books. And it's a spiritual thing, and you have this desire for them to get to know God through what you're doing. And at the end of the day, if you come back and like 2 people bought books from you that day, it feels really bad, especially when the young lady next to you, because it's always a young lady that sells more than you.
Why is that, Jason?
I'm just going to say because little girls are cute and people give them lots of money. That's just why. Anyway, so
Little girls.
The little the better. I don't know. That's just how it works.
All right, let's keep going.
Anyway, my point is, you look at somebody else and, 20 people got books from them, and you're just like, man, they're doing such a better job at this spiritual thing than I am, and it can feel like my faith is in the dumps. And the reality is, God doesn't invite us to success. God invites us to diligent labor for him. I mean, I'm talking about in ministry context. I'm a pastor. I was doing literature evangelism and stuff. He asks us to do diligently the work that's put in front of us. Whatever your hand finds to do it with your might. And then he doesn't tell us that we're responsible for the results. He just tells us we're responsible for being faithful with what he's put in front of us. And then he's the one responsible for the results. And we might not know until heaven what the impact is. And so my feelings might be in the dumps, but my faith is to say, like Abraham, he believed God would do what he said he would do. Even when it looked like it was impossible, he was 100 and nobody could have a kid at that age. Even when things were completely impossible, he said, well, God said it. I guess he's going to figure it out somehow. And that's, I think, like Saul said, a gift from God to believe those promises.
So how do you grow faith? You keep going. Even when it doesn't make sense, even when you don't understand, you keep going.
Well, and I think, if I may interject, I think looking back at places where God has led you in the past helps build your faith. You have to be aware of it and be willing to say, this and this and this were times when God was there with me.
And how do you have faith if you don't even know God's promises? Like, Abraham can't have faith in a promise God never gave him. And you and I can't have faith in something that we haven't even seen yet, haven't heard yet. So spending time in the Bible is a way that we grow our faith, simply because we start to hear the promises of God and start to see them happening.
So hopefully that has answered some of your questions that you guys had. And if not, write them down, put them in the box, come ask us. We'd love to hear it. But in order to stay on our schedule and make sure that we are taking along, we're super excited about this afternoon and what we're talking about. But at this moment, we're going to hand it back over to Amy.
Am I on? There I'm on. Okay. Did they disappear? I'd like you guys to give Larissa and Jason and Saul a round of applause. So this is the first year that whether attending Teen Retreat or helping with Teen Retreat, that we've actually had a panel of people up here. And I think it's been really fun. What do you guys think? Do you like that? Yeah, it's a little more relational. Yeah, I think it's been really good. Okay, so we're going to move into our outreach project. So normally, each year for Teen Retreat, I should say pre-COVID, we would do an outreach activity. And it's really hard to do a community service outreach activity here at Mybiden because we can't really leave. We need to stay here. And so this year's been a little bit difficult. So we're actually changing things a little bit. And we actually have 4 options for you. So I'm going to present your options, and then the people who are in charge are going to expound on those options. Okay, so the first one that we have is actually going to meet with Miss Estee over in Roadside Cottonwood is where this one's going to be. So what we'd like you to do is you're going to meet Estee. You are going to go spend some time out in the sunshine. And you're going to have more of a building project in building a diorama. And then we want you to take the pictures of that and upload them into our Google photo album. Is it up there? Okay, perfect. So you can scan that with your phones, and then it'll open up the Google photo album, and then you can share your photos into that album. So that's one project. The next project is actually making an encouraging meme. But again, go outside. There's going to be further instructions. If your group would like to do that, then you're going to meet Peter up at the bell. There's Peter. Okay, and let me just say this really quick while I'm thinking about it. You need to stay as a club. So as your club, as your unit, you guys are going to decide which project you guys do. But we do want to get you out in that sunshine. That'll be really fun. Okay, the next activity, there's 4 activities. So the next activity will be working with James. James is in the back there. I'm sorry, David? You're going to meet one of the Jeffrey brothers. I'm sorry, there's 3 Jeffrey brothers here. Sorry, Michael. I mean, unless you really want to be involved, you can. One of the Jeffrey brothers will meet you. Okay, and this will be in the cafeteria around the fire pit that's in the cafeteria. And this will be, there'll be some music involved. So if you're a club and you brought some musical instruments and you want to to a musical project. That is where that one is at. Okay, and then the last one, and this is going to take one club. It's kind of small. It's not a huge project, but we did get some items for the hygiene kits to donate to Union Gospel Mission. Do you guys know what Union Gospel Mission is? No? Okay, so Union Gospel Mission is a shelter for people who are homeless, and they can go to the shelter and we give them hygiene kits. Well, hygiene kits have what you would think: soap, toothbrush, toothpaste, shampoo, those kind of things. And when they come to Union Gospel Mission, they're able to give those out to all of these individuals, and then they will donate them to Union Gospel Mission. So those are our 4 activities. So you guys get to choose. So again, Estee with the dioramas is going to be in Cottonwood Roadside. Peter with the meme is going to be up at the Bell. Do you guys all know where the Bell is? Up on the road? Okay. And Roy and Patty, there's Roy. There's Patty. Okay, they're going to help with the Union Gospel Mission and actually meet them at the French door room. And then James and or David are going to be at the fireside. All right, you guys. Oh, we need to be back here by 4:30. Synchronized watches. That's not much time. All right. So let's have a word of prayer before we dismiss, and for helping our speakers to really connect with everybody else, building these relationships and teaching us how to connect with you better. We appreciate their insight, Lord, and please help us each to be spiritually blessed today. In your name, amen. All right, you are released.